So that's it, over, done. 2 weeks of intolerable heat that we call summer, and now we're back to normal. It's actually really pleasant. It's calm, fairly still. There's a light breeze, but it's just so pleasantly cool. It's a cloudy sky, but there are breaks. So you've got this coolness, and when the wind drops, when this breeze drops, you can actually feel this slight undercurrent of warmth in the air, and there's blue patches, and the blue is like that blue that kids use to paint the sky, and occasionally the sun comes through for a few seconds and the heat rises and then lowers again, and it is so pleasant. But because it has been hot, and then you get people saying, oh, why don't you have your AC in Europe? Why not in the country of Europe? Europe is such a third world country. Europe isn't a country. And why don't you have AC, and why don't you do that? Well, one of the things is that AC is so difficult to retrofit into all the very old properties that we have in Europe. And there are a lot of countries in Europe that do have AC, but up here in the northwest of Europe, we don't get a lot of summer, we don't get a lot of heat. We have 2 weeks of the year and then it's back to normal, and I quite like the normal. I like this pleasantness that promotes green and brown and yellow, and the colours of the wild flowers all whipping backwards and forwards in this zephyr. And then I can look and I can see beyond me in the sunlight coming through the trees, causing shadows where the bright yellow of the sun is throwing little golden trails across the path in front of me, this wide path in front of me. And this is what it's all about. But the thing is, because we don't get much summer, we also get a certain demographic of the populace that amuse the rest of us by the way they dress in the summer months. In fact, the way they dress all the year round with enthusiasm. Let's call it enthusiasm. See the sun coming out, and so they dress accordingly and what they think accordingly, and they look at themselves in the mirror and they think, look at me, I am an icon, a culture of fashion. And they're not. And we call them over here, at least here in the northwest, we call them Dobbers. And everyone knows Dobbers. And Dobbers are a certain demographic of the working class of which I am proudly one. And we are proud of our Dobbers. Our Dobbers are the type of people who buy enormous four-wheel drives, even though you'd not a clue where they get the money from, and then they park them in supermarket disabled bays, and proudly so, because they actually, if they parked in somewhere normal, they would just get out and go about their day, but they don't. They park them in supermarket disabled parking bays and then get out and look round and say, look at me, Dobber, I am Dobber. And the thing is with Dobbers, they're like a fashion catwalk, but like a car crash fashion catwalk. They have their own way of dressing that is both gross and frightening. It is unique and it is silly. It is amusing, and that's great. For the rest of us, that is wonderful. We love our Dobbers. Let me explain the Dobber. Let me explain the Dobber in summer, because yes, Here in Northwest Europe, we don't get a lot of summer, so we tend to behave enthusiastically when we do. We embrace the summer. Look at this now. I told you the sun was going to come out. I've walked it. This temperature has gone up by 1,000 degrees as I've walked from underneath the trees, and it is so pleasant, and Molly and I are going to stay out. And we will probably meet the Dobber, the famous Dobber. The Dobber. The thing is, every culture has its equivalent of the Dobber. And don't tell me you don't, but you do. Because when I describe the English Dobber, you will say, ah, yes, he's right. Nigel is right again. Why is Nigel right all the time? Because we have the Dobber as well. The Dobber. Let me explain. The female Dobber. She is as wide as she's tall. Her hair is scraped back tightly from her head into a short ponytail, held in place by a rubber band rescued from a recently bought bunch of spring onions. She wears a tight, over tight fabric, lycra type top, but extremely thin, so that you can see every bit of her underwear underneath, every crease of her skin. And then she wears trousers that by design are gossamer thin, and then washed and washed and washed to within an inch of their lives. And there she puts these on, she stretches these on, it takes ages to get them on, but eventually she does, and you can see her knickers underneath. You can see every crease and every fold and every drip of sweat as she negotiates the hot 2-week English summer. And Dobbers aren't just as wide as they are tall. There is the narrow Dobber. And these narrow Dobbers are like chalk white stick insects, always with a vicious expression like they want to fight you. And both will have rivulets of sweat dripping down the face that dries quickly in the summer sun to leave thin white lines of salt that makes them look as though they've just been through some kind of voodoo festival and ceremony. The Dobber. They typically have 4 kids. They are also as wide as they are tall, and usually call things like Wayne and Dwayne and Waynetta and Brittany, and they spend the time running round unsupervised, pulling goods off supermarket shelves and screaming at the top of the voice with their Dobber parents saying, oh, weren't they cute, our Wayne and Dwayne and Waynetta and Brittany, huh? Why is everybody criticising them? My kids, he's a lovely boy. What do you mean? He shot up that supermarket. He's a lovely boy and he loves his grandma. And this is what they like. And then you get the husband, who is also as wide as he is tall, and usually slightly unshaven with a pot belly after years of gorging on cheap beer and chips. And he's wearing a knockoff football shirt from Sports Direct and shorts. And he's got short little legs with calves that look like shopping bags filled with Jersey Royal potatoes. This is the Dobber that others may think is a curse on society and gives the English a bad image. But probably they do, because that seems to be the image of the British that people across the world recognise, the Dobber. The wonderful Dobber. We're not all Dobbers. There are very few Dobbers. But have you noticed in life that He who shouts loudest gets most attention. He or she who shouts loudest is the one that everybody recognises as that demographic, that person, that nationality. It all happens. Italians have got it. The French have certainly got it. The Americans really do have got it. Everybody in the world has got it. And ours is the Dobber, and the Dobber is out in summer. And it's been a beautiful summer, and it's been a hot summer, and everybody has been saying, look at the Brits, what's wrong with them? Why don't you just get AC? Because we only have it 2 weeks of the year. We don't need AC. Our government hates AC, because it says that if we put in AC, we are killing the planet. So they will ban AC and kill the little old people who can't stand the heat for that 2 weeks of the year. But the people who love the heat, the people who walk round in the lycra, skin-tight, gossamer thin tops and trousers, falling over in bars and fighting in the streets and parking their four-wheel drives in the disabled bays of supermarkets. And we love them, the Dobber. Everybody loves a good old Dobber. And the Dobber in summer is the car crash fashion catwalk model. We see them, we avert our eyes, because if you look at the Dobber, that will instigate violence. The Dobber will catch your eye for a microsecond and say, what are you staring at? We're staring at you, Dobber. We are staring at you because you give us all a bad name. People in the other countries have their people who give them a bad name, and Dobber, you are ours. You give us a bad name with your hair scratched back in a greasy ponytail and held there with a elastic band, rescued off a recently bought bunch of spring onions, and that tight top with your vast, voluminous breasts, braless, free to gamble about as they please, and the rolls of fat going down to your tight, gossamer thin trousers where we can see your TK Maxx knickers and every fold underneath those knickers. And Dobber, we are proud of you. It's a shame that we've ended this annual short, hot spell. It's a shame, because the Dobber will go back to just being one of many. The Dobber won't shine quite as brightly as the Dobber does in the heat of summer. But never mind, the Dobber will be here again next year in all its Dobber glory. And you've got one. You out there, wherever you are. America, Italy, Spain, Venezuela, Austria, Africa. You've got a Dobber, you just call it a Dobber is a Dobber by any other name. And we're loving this. And this has raised our spirits, and Molly has been running about and crashing about and howling at everybody. And she can't see, and you wouldn't know, because dogs are wonderful creatures that adapt much better than the human race. You wouldn't tell my little dog was blind, only I know. Because they're not as weak as us. They don't demand little things like us. Dogs and animals in general demand little. Demand food and drink, the odd bit of excitement which they appreciate without question, unlike us, who demand everything, then question its value. It's never good enough, but it's always good enough for animals, isn't it? And it's a beautiful day. We've been out for hours now, and we're going to stay out because it's just so pleasant. So thanks for joining us on this little walk and a little chat about Dobbers. We shall see you on the flip. Peace and love.